from around the world. And from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Winding up a two-day trip to the Midwest to sell his economic and new federalism programs, President Reagan today vowed to stick to his course. In his words, we will not play hopscotch economics, jumping here and there as the daily situation changes. Bill Plant traveled with the president.
The presidential motorcade sped toward the Iowa State Capitol this morning past crowds of demonstrators gathered in the bitter cold to protest administration policies. Inside, however, a warm welcome. Mr. Reagan's speech, as released yesterday, was a mild defense of his budget and a sales pitch for his new federalism program. But following a high-level strategy session, the president added some new material and came out swinging at critics of the budget.
Even before the budget came out, you could hear the sound of knees jerking all over Washington. The knee-jerk reactions and instant analyses were as hasty as they were incorrect. Despite all the talk, there is a deafening silence on alternatives. The budget we've proposed is a line drawn in the dirt. Those who are serious about reducing the deficit will cross it and work with us on our proposal or their alternative. Those who are not sincere in their concern about the deficit will stay on the other side and simply continue their theatrics.
Then it was on to Indianapolis, where the presidential roadshow followed the same script. Once again, there were demonstrators, primarily union members. They were gathered in a large crowd as the motorcade turned to enter the Capitol. Another warm reception inside for Mr. Reagan's address to the state legislature, and though the words were different, the tune was exactly the same.
We have faith in our program and we're sticking with it. To the paid political complainers, let me say as politely as I can, put up or shut up. We have a solid plan already in place. What do they have? Either they give the American people a better alternative, or they join with us in our efforts to get the economy right.
This is just the beginning of Mr. Reagan's challenge to those who disagree with his new budget. It is a tactic that he and his advisors like already, and which we can expect them to continue in the weeks and months ahead. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the presidential party in Indianapolis.
While Bill Plant returned to Washington with Mr. Reagan, Bob McNamara sampled some of the Iowa reaction to the president's programs.
What do we want? No! What does Iowa want? No! When do we want them? No! When do
More
we
than
want
1,000 persons marched through Des Moines' sub-zero temperatures this morning, trying to get within earshot of the state capitol while the president spoke. Most were members of farm, labor, and women's organizations. And Reaganomics was the focus of the protest. The budget cuts, high interest rates, unemployment statistics, and low farm prices.
I think Reagan has to get the message when this many people are willing to brave below zero weather to come and say to him that there's something wrong with his new federalism.
By contrast, Adel, Iowa, 20 miles away, today was as quiet as it always is. And along Main Street, some of the businessmen who helped elect Ronald Reagan have no big problems with his policies.
Yeah, an ice cream cone with that. I'd say, on a scale 1 to 10, he's doing a job of 7, maybe 8. I think we've got to get behind him and back him.
But a few doors down the street at Whitmore's drugstore, druggist Harry Whitmore, who voted for the president, is lukewarm to Mr. Reagan now.
I think he's doing a fair job, but I'm distressed about interest rates and terrific buildup in defense spending.
And even though interest rates are squeezing these small businesses with big inventories and little to borrow on, Chick Schwarzkopf says he's willing to give Ronald Reagan a little more time to get the economy moving again.
I think the direction he's going is what's available to him. I think he's sincere in doing it, and I definitely would support him.
Small-town Iowa has always seemed more patient with presidents than the rest of the country. But in Adel, there are signs that patience could thin out quickly, unless Mr. Reagan makes good on his promise to turn the economy around. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Adel, Iowa.
In Congress, patience already is thinning out. So today, the White House sent its top economic triumvirate to Capitol Hill to deal with the situation. Susan Spencer reports.
The administration sent a three-man budget SWAT team to Capitol Hill to handle any conceivable question and fend off any criticism from doubters. And doubters there are, largely over the question of whether the $216 billion defense budget is too big.
When you increase the defense budget by $100 billion, when you cut human services, take $100 billion and give it to the people, and then you'll have national defense in this country. Not when the people have to be hurt to pay the fodder, the waste that's in defense.
Officials denied repeatedly that the '83 budget would sacrifice the needy to pay the defense bills, or that it's a big reason for the projected $91 billion deficit. But some doubts today came from their own side of the aisle.
I can't agree on the priorities of this budget. The cuts in the non-defense budget are too deep. And I ask the question, can we find a common ground? Is there some give in the defense budget?
Now, I'm not trying to suggest that this budget is airtight, but as you go through this budget, the idea that there are simply huge gobs to be plucked out of there with no cost, with no impact, will be proven to be wrong.
Late this afternoon, Stockman briefed Southern Democrats, the so-called boll weevils who voted with Mr. Reagan last time, but who clearly aren't so sure anymore.
I think we're going to have to look at defense, but not as substitutes for the cuts the president's proposed, but as additions to those cuts to try to get the deficit down.
With all these briefings, you'd think the budget had been on Capitol Hill for 2 months, not just 2 days. Some in Congress are taking that to mean that the administration may be willing to talk alternatives, a trait for which it was not particularly known during the more heady days of the last session. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
When we eat our shredded wheat, we never leave them whole. We mash them up and bash them up, we smash them in the bowl. We crush them, break them, squash them, squeeze them, twist them in our fist. We grind them into tiny, tasty bits.
Nabisco shredded wheat, big or little, made of 100% natural whole wheat, with no added sugar, no added salt.
They feel so good, they taste so good for breakfast. Even lunch. We love that whole wheat flavor, we love that whole wheat crunch.
Nabisco shredded wheats, the great taste of whole wheat, no added sugar, no added salt.
Which of the following jobs expose workers to the least on-the-job accidents? Did you pick chemical worker? Among all major companies in the country, where does DuPont consistently rank in keeping workers safe from accidents? The answer? First. Where is a DuPont chemical worker safest? With DuPont's emphasis on workers' safety, he's actually safer at work.
DuPont, makers of better things for better living.
The 35-nation European Security Conference in Spain officially was to be a follow-up session to the 1975 East-West Helsinki Agreement. But at the closed-door session today, it became a platform for denunciations of civil rights violations by the Soviet Union and Poland. Secretary of State Haig said the martial law crackdown in Poland with Soviet backing was, quote, a dramatic attack on international principles. He added that East-West relations now were at a critical crossroads. More on this from Robert Pierpoint in Madrid.
Secretary Haig may well have signaled the beginning of the end for the 1975 Helsinki Agreement, which attempts to guarantee the civil and human rights of citizens of both East and West. He bluntly blamed the Soviet Union for perhaps irreparably damaging this conference by what he called its continuous and utter disregard for those guarantees. Haig later repeated his remarks for reporters.
The Soviet Union has invaded Afghanistan and occupies and suppresses that country today. The Soviet Union has aided and abetted the suppression in Poland. The Soviet Union has failed to accept the rights and principles established in the Helsinki Accords. The Soviet response this morning in no way provided an adequate explanation for the repression that is occurring in Poland today.
Haig added that the U.S. and the West cannot conduct business as usual at this conference as long as the Polish crisis continues, and he was asked just what he meant.
The exclusive focus will be the situation in Poland, not the business of the conference. That will continue until we have had an ample opportunity to assess very carefully what the Eastern reaction will be.
American officials expect that in a week or two, the few neutral nations here will move for a recess until the Polish crisis is settled, which may mean this conference will never reconvene and the Helsinki agreements will become a dead letter. Robert Pierpoint, CBS News, Madrid.
More than any other Polish city, Gdansk epitomizes the reform movement that was shackled by martial law. It has been officially off-limits to foreigners since the crackdown began almost 2 months ago. Today, however, the lid was lifted slightly, and Bert Quint was there.
Gdansk said they were afraid to speak to Western reporters, but a few whispered, one day the government will have to talk to Solidarity. It's the only union for us. Eventually, we will win. Others were more pessimistic. We may have a union again, they said, but it won't be the same. A service resumed throughout the country was cut off again in Gdansk. The curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. elsewhere is from 8 until 5 here. But the spirit of rebellion against martial law apparently has not been broken. There is talk of organizing another illegal demonstration this weekend. Bert Quint, CBS News, Warsaw.
For 8 years, Saudi Arabia has resisted negotiating a formal agreement with the United States for closer military ties. But during a marathon meeting with officials in Saudi Arabia today, Defense Secretary Weinberger broke through that Saudi resistance. His leverage was the 5 AWACS radar planes the United States will sell the Saudis. The final agreement for those planes was reached, but only after the two countries agreed to form a joint military committee. From Saudi Arabia, Weinberger went to Oman for talks with Persian Gulf security officials there. In December 1980, 3 nuns and 1 Catholic lay worker from the United States were brutally murdered in El Salvador. In the 14 months since that time, no one has been charged in connection with those murders. But the State Department late today told the families of those 4 women missionaries that the 6 National Guardsmen in El Salvador who had been suspects were discharged from the Army and arrested yesterday. The family said they were told the 6 now are expected to be indicted tomorrow. Investigators have recovered flight recorders from the Japan Airlines DC-8 that plunged into Tokyo Bay yesterday. The airliner went down in near-perfect flying conditions just seconds before it was due to land. Of 174 persons aboard, 24 were killed. 71 were hospitalized. Several hundred rescue workers were mobilized to take out the survivors.
Your next long-distance call may be transmitted by satellite. The signals being sent and received from places like this called Earth stations. It's our latest way of preparing for the future, when telephone traffic gets heavier and heavier. Because you see, each one of the satellites can handle 18,000 calls at once.
G?
No, GTE.
What do doctors recommend to avoid constipation? These days, doctors stress the importance of fiber in the diet. Food fiber that helps the system regulate itself naturally. Metamucil is made from natural fiber, no chemical stimulants. So for occasional constipation, doctors recommend Metamucil more often than any other laxative. The way to overcome constipation is the natural way. But if not nature, Metamucil.
Klaus von Bülow. He's on trial in Newport, Rhode Island for the attempted murder of his wife. Socialite heiress Martha von Bülow, who is 50, has been in a coma since December 1980. The state blames that coma on an alleged insulin injection by von Bülow. So far, the court has heard from a variety of witnesses, but not from the central figure in the trial. But today, Klaus von Bülow spoke with Morton Dean.
No, I don't find
We talked with the 55-year-old former London lawyer and former aide to J. Paul Getty in a Newport motel where he and his lawyer stay.
My wife and I stayed here when we were doing up the house.
He apparently spends no time in the house in Clarendon Court, but spends most of his time in the motel and in Superior Court. Why does he feel his trial is being covered so extensively here and overseas?
I think there are certain aspects, like the aura of the name Newport, that, for instance, attracted this as opposed to many other resorts. My wife's first marriage gives it a certain cuteness. My work
In years past, for Mr. Getty, gives it a certain interest.
Are you aware that all eyes are frequently on you?
Yes, it is very difficult to sit and do nothing knowing that the camera is on you. I think counsel have their role, the witnesses have their role, everybody in the courtroom has a role, except I'm sitting there and just have to sit quietly.
As he listened quietly today, he heard the emergency room doctor who worked on Mrs. von Bülow when she went into her continuing coma 13 months ago.
The patient was deeply comatose, the most severe case of coma I've ever seen.
His testimony complemented the prosecution's claim an insulin injection caused the coma, not alcohol or other drugs.
Alcohol and salicylate, that means a form of aspirin, or the parent form of aspirin. Negative, that means none found.
Several years ago, Klaus von Bülow wrote a booklet called Clarendon Court and Its Ghosts. In the final paragraph, he says he treated previous occupants of the mansion with wistful charity and hoped some future writer would do the same for the von Bülows.
Of course, that sounds very prophetic today. It wasn't meant that way.
If you were to write it again today, would you write it pretty much the same way?
Yes, I probably would.
Morton Dean, CBS News, Newport.
A lawman today called it the most brutal thing I've ever seen. He spoke after 2 black prisoners were killed and 2 others wounded last night when 7 white inmates stormed through Tennessee's Brushy Mountain Penitentiary. The whites, armed with a pistol, took 4 guards hostage just long enough to steal their keys. The whites then shot the blacks in their cells. There was no escape attempt. The whites surrendered peacefully, one of them saying, "We just did what we had to do." At Brushy Mountain last June, James Earl Ray, convicted killer of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., was stabbed repeatedly by black militants. He later was removed to another prison.
Why have over 1 million people replaced their brakes at Midas? Was it because they know Midas has brake mechanics that are specially trained? Was it because they know Midas has the right brake parts in stock? Or was it because they know Midas has over 20 years' experience under the car? Well, whatever the reason, it certainly was no accident. Get the Midas touch. Nobody else has it.
Why did Betty Manning stop using her cream denture adhesive?
It would ooze out the sides.
We asked her to try the natural powder adhesive, Fast Teeth Powder. It sprays on a smooth, even layer.
I don't notice that the fast teeth is there. It makes your dentures feel more like they're in like regular teeth. There's a word here, natural feeling. That's what it feels like, and it gives you confidence. That's all I can say about it.
Fast Teeth Powder makes dentures feel more like your own teeth.
It just gives me a good feeling.
A fire that started in a restaurant basement today spread through downtown Tijuana, Mexico. Billowing black smoke clouds were easily visible across the border in Southern California. The Mexican firemen were handicapped in efforts to fight the blaze by antiquated water pumpers and the fact that Tijuana is suffering a water shortage. The world's first automatic parking meter was installed in Oklahoma City in 1935. That was during the Great Depression when the cities were in desperate need of money. And now, where are the hard-pressed cities turning for revenue? Meredith Vieira tells you.
This car in Boston is going no place fast. That yellow thing on its rear wheel is a metal locking device called a boot. The city put it there to immobilize the car because the car's owner hasn't paid his parking tickets.
Okay. Yeah, you owe me $400.
Like many cities, Boston has declared war on parking violators because it needs the cash now that state and federal dollars are drying up. It's discovered a gold mine in people who ignore parking tickets. In just 6 months, the city has collected $10 million in parking fines, twice what it took in from tickets in all of fiscal '81.
That type of money can reasonably translate into as many as 1,000 people being able to stay on a payrolls throughout the city that otherwise would have to be laid off.
Boston's Get Tough policy is being played out in other large cities with similar results. Since July, when most cities begin their fiscal year, Miami has handed out more tickets and for higher amounts, and its seen ticket revenues jump 119% from the previous 6 months. Collections in Detroit have hit the $2 million mark, up 100%, and in Los Angeles, where owning a car is a fact of life, illegal parkers have already forked over more than $7 million in fines. But when it comes to parking tickets, nobody outdoes New York City. Last year alone, it handed out 9.5 million summonses and collected $94 million. New York City takes its ticketing so seriously, it's even adopted a serious-sounding vocabulary to go along with it. Meter maids here are called traffic enforcement agents. But some folks believe officials should add one more word to the vocabulary: harassment. Robert Quaid spent hours retrieving his car after it was wrongly towed.
I had to waste a whole day at work, lose money, lose time. For what? Just for a bunch of nonsense.
When pressed, city officials from around the country insist their main concern is law and order, not money. Right now, they can afford to say that. With more and more people abandoning mass transit for cars, and with too few parking spaces to fit them all, it seems likely there will always be another violator somewhere to tow away. Meredith Vieira, CBS News, New York.
The House tonight voted overwhelmingly 398 to 3 for an extra $2.3 billion in unemployment aid. The Reagan administration had asked for the additional money to deal with rising joblessness and to reopen closed employment offices. A House subcommittee voted 11 to 6 today to cite Interior Secretary Watt for contempt for withholding subpoenaed documents, allegedly on orders from President Reagan. The documents concern Canadian energy policy and its effect on U.S. investors. This matter now goes to the full Energy and Commerce Committee before reaching the House floor. Former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger said today that he will undergo heart surgery at Boston's Massachusetts General Hospital tomorrow. It could be a triple bypass. The 58-year-old Kissinger talked about it at a news conference.
They came to the conclusion that two conclusions. One, that I do have a heart, and second, that it is in need of some repair. So they're going to do a bypass operation tomorrow morning.
Are you a saltaholic? Do you think most everything needs salt? Then you're a saltaholic. Like most Americans, you eat more than 20 times the salt your body needs. Now, with new No Salt, you can have the flavor of salt without salt. No Salt tastes like salt, but there's no salt in No Salt. You can shake No Salt, cook with No Salt, No Salt, and shake the salt habit.
Honey, breakfast!
Great coffee.
Yeah, it's Maxwell House Master Blend.
Oh, isn't that supposed to save us money?
Mm-hmm. It only tastes expensive.
Master Blend, a special blend of 100% coffee we make a special way so you can save money. Master Blend, it only tastes expensive.
They used to call it losing the farm, and the villain was the mustachioed fellow with an eye on the farmer's daughter. Now it's called involuntary conveyance, and the villains are high interest rates, high production costs, and depressed market conditions. And the Farmers Home Administration said today that in the last 3 months of 1981, almost as many farmers had to turn over their farms to the FHA as in the previous 12 months combined. Well, it might have been another case of poor butterfly, but things seem to have worked out in the San Bruno Mountains. Although, as Barry Peterson reports, a developer learned that butterflies aren't free.
It is a developer's dream, an untouched mountain nestled amidst one of the most expensive real estate markets in America. To the west, the Pacific Ocean. To the north, San Francisco. And right underfoot, a developer's nightmare. The San Bruno Mountains, with their stunning views, are already home to the last remaining mission blue butterflies, an endangered species. And here, too, the Calliope silver spot, also threatened. It is the stuff of which controversies are made, but not this time. Local officials stepped in and urged the developer and environmentalist to work together.
Instead of walking 10 paces and turning around and firing or taking out the cudgels and attacking, why don't they step back and try and to reason with each other and to respect the other point of view?
So the developer spent $250,000 on a 2-year butterfly study. Workers tracked them day by day, marking the ones they could catch to get accurate estimates of how many butterflies still exist and where and how they live.
We just had to face up to the fact that we did have rare and endangered species and had to deal with them the best way we knew how.
Then housing projects were tailored to fit into the areas the butterflies didn't inhabit. And once the federal government approves, $1 billion worth of new housing will be built here starting next spring.
I think this was a little bit of a situation where nobody wanted to be the bad guy. We didn't want the Endangered Species Act to stand against economic progress, and I think the developers, on the other hand, didn't want to be seen as trampling on a species that exists nowhere else in the earth.
The level of cooperation is so unusual here that federal officials say it has set a standard for how development and a habitat set aside for an endangered species can coexist. Barry Peterson, CBS News, in the San Bruno Mountains south of San Francisco.
And that's the CBS Evening News for this Tuesday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Introducing Mr. Culver's Sparklers.
Light up the sparklers.
The new air fresheners that look as beautiful as they smell.
Smell that sunny freshness.
Just hang up sparklers and out comes a fresh, clean, sunny fragrance.
Hang up the sparklers.
Show off sparklers in every room of your home. They're too pretty to hide.
Light up the sparklers.
Sparklers, the new air fresheners that look as beautiful as they smell.
Good to have you back. Here we go.
Sentry Insurance knows that sometimes it takes more to get an injured worker back on his feet than just footing his medical bills. And Sentry is big enough to do more. Sentry can provide for physical therapy, even job retraining if it's needed, to get a worker back where he belongs.
Ernie, you look terrific.
All's well. With Sentry, you know all's well.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
I'm Diane Sawyer. The news doesn't stop overnight, and Charles Kuralt and I will be here to bring you up to date tomorrow and every weekday on Morning.
This is CBS.
An attack at Brushy Mountain State Prison has left 2 inmates dead, 2 others wounded, and prison officials had been warned it might happen. We'll have the story next on Eyewitness News.
From Television 5, this is Eyewitness News, weather, and sports.
Good evening, everyone. A month ago, the Tennessee Department of Corrections was warned repeatedly about